Good evening. You're watching the news at 6 with me, Shan Russell. The news at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. Russia backs Indian Army surgical strikes across POK. Both sides signed 16 MOUs, including key deals on defense, hydrocarbons, space and smart cities. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to hold bilateral talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Beijing's opposition to India's entry to NSG and efforts to get UN ban on Masood Azhar to top the agenda. "19 people killed in a stampede in Varanasi. Incident took place as a procession of thousands moved towards the Rajya bridge for an event organized by the Jai Gurudev sect. And 197 nations signed deal to cut back on greenhouse gases used in refrigerators and air conditioners. India, China and US and Europe agree on timeline to reduce the use of hydrofluorocarbons by 85% by 2045. Our top story this evening: Russia today backed India's anti-terror surgical strikes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi indicated this at a joint media conference where he called Moscow an old friend that shares New Delhi's stand on terrorism. Modi said he deeply appreciated Russia's support of India's action to fight cross-border terrorism that threatens our entire region. Modi held bilateral talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin before both sides signed as many as 16 significant deals covering defense and other sectors.
India and Russia on Saturday sealed a number of big-ticket defense deals. This was after Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin held wide-ranging bilateral talks and resolved to fight terrorism unitedly.
The complex and changing global context, your leadership has provided stability and substance to our strategic partnership. Ours is a truly privileged and unique relationship.
Prime Minister Modi also appreciated Russia's understanding and support of India's actions to fight cross-border terrorism, indicating the recent surgical strikes inside POK.
Russia's clear stand on the need to combat terrorism mirrors of our own. We deeply appreciate Russia's understanding and support of our actions to fight cross-border terrorism that threatens our entire region. We both affirm the need for zero tolerance in dealing with terrorists and their supporters.
Putin, on his part, said both countries have close cooperation in fighting terrorism.
Налажен, например, выпуск истребителей Су-30 МКИ, танков Т-90, противокорабельных ракет комплексов «Брамос». В планах начать собирать в Индии многоцелевые вертолеты, военные фрегаты. Нацелены укреплять гуманитарные связи.
The deals include purchase of missile systems, frigates and joint production of helicopters. India will acquire the S-400 Triumph long-range air defense missile system that can destroy incoming hostile aircraft, missiles and even drones at ranges of up to 400 kilometers. Also part of the deal are 4 Admiral Grigorovich-class guided missile stealth frigates.
A lot of the discussions were focused on 4-5 priority areas because, again, please bear in mind the discussions are still ongoing. Some of it was on military technical cooperation, the S-400 system, the 1135.6 frigates, the progress in the K-2260 helicopters. There were 2 proposals, new proposals on which we agreed, reflected again in the joint statement about a military technical conference to be held between the 2 countries.
The two leaders also dedicated the Unit 2 of Kudankulam nuclear power plant and witnessed the laying of the foundation of Units 3 and 4. Both sides signed as many as 16 MOUs and made 3 announcements to boost ties in sectors like trade and investment, hydrocarbons, space and smart cities.
What you are seeing now are really big steps in Russia and India investing in each other. You know, the scale of investments that we saw announced today, whether it was in the refinery project or whether it is in the oil field, this is unprecedented. Okay? Other than the energy bridge, and by the way, we are looking to ramp this up further. Now, other than the energy bridge, and the energy bridge also includes solar investments, solar projects, as well as nuclear projects. So you put it together, that's a pretty impressive portfolio out there. Other than the energy side, for example, where we are looking to progress the green corridor, which will allow sort of companies which are cleared to export to each other in a smoother manner.
Traditional allies India and Russia signed the Declaration of Strategic Partnership in October 2000. One of the key elements to this is to set in place the mechanism of annual summits.
Don't expect political or diplomatic persuasion from Russia to Pakistan as far as cross-border terrorism is concerned. But Russia makes it very clear, whatever equipments you need to fight a state and sponsor of terrorism, we are ready to give you. Bottom line is, keep doing the business and do the business. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Television with camera person C.V. Sudarshan in Goa.
Let's go across to our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who's been tracking this development right from Goa. And Akhilesh, talking about India and Russia, old-time allies, and in that vein, both sides continuing. And Russia has already expressed support for India's fight against terror. But what more can we expect? How do you see this relationship moving forward? What will be the focus areas?
See, the bottom line, as I have mentioned, that bottom line is that business between India and Russia has gone down deeply. It was almost $2 billion trade that would have gone up, but it was not now. So after 2 years of Prime Ministership, Narendra Modi has understood that the only friend that is available in the whole world that can give materials that is required for India's defense is Russia. And that is why he said that one old friend is better than 2 new friends. That means it is a time-tested friendship. And it reflects the vision of Jawaharlal Nehru or Indira Gandhi, who had put all their political investment in friendship with Russia. And now I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi has recognized our old policy, what Russia was important for us. If you go through the whole deals, Russia has also assured us that, okay, as far as Indian exports are concerned, we will remove the non-tariff barriers, because Indian export to Russia has also gone down very well, very deeply. And there were complaints from Russian side that quality of Indian products are going down. So India has to also maintain some sort of quality check, whatever is being exported to Russia. So in this whole summit process, India and Russia has understood that, okay, the export from India should go up, and imports from Russia, that is basically in defense and oil sector, has to go up. So in that case, it is a win-win situation for both Russia and India. But India should not expect that Russia will put all its energy against Pakistan, because Russia is seeing a new vision in the whole Asia-Pacific region, and it also wants to expand its presence in the whole Asia-Pacific region. So Russians have assured India that, okay, we will have some sort of relationship with many other countries in the region, but we will assure that it will not go against India. And that is the assurance that has been given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi when the issue of Pakistan was raised before President Putin.
All right, Akhilesh, do stay on with us, because there's another element that I'd like your input on, and that's because Prime Minister Modi is likely to raise the issue of India's NSG membership bid and the blocking of UN ban on JS chief Masood Azhar during talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. This as China sticks to its stance against India to continue blocking its efforts to ban the Pakistani terrorist Masood Azhar, and also the NSG bid, until a consensus emerged on both issues. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said there were differing views among members of the United Nations Security Council on listing Azhar as a terrorist. China had vetoed the resolution on Azhar's banning at the UNSC for the second time earlier this month. China also reiterated that there was no change in its position on the issue of India's entry into the 48-member nuclear suppliers group. Our correspondent Akhilesh Suman spoke to Chinese interlocutor Chen Xiaoshen and on these issues. Let's listen in.
You had been affected by the menace of terrorism, but when India poses that Masood Azhar should be proscribed by the United Nations, China opposes it. So what is the reason behind that?
I think in United Nations,
Yeah.
we must have a very clear definition of terrorism according to the UN Charter. So I think the UN Charter and also all of the UN process, we must follow that. So I think it's rather a very technical issues toward terrorism.
But do you think that any midway can be achieved between India and China on this issue?
Sorry, the midway?
Any midway, any convergence of opinion between...
Yes, I think we should, that's why I think we should have a lot of talks. I think now the point is, the problem is that the talk is still not enough. The talk is far from enough, especially from our Indian side. So I think now Indians should be more, more active in doing that, and also, under the principle of mutual understandings. I mean, we should understand more to each other and to both of them concerned.
And let's go back to Goa to our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who's been tracking all these developments. Akhilesh, the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping is set to take place soon. But in terms of where both the countries have seen their relationship really go down the spiral, especially over Pakistan and China's almost belligerent and continued support for that state, how do you see things progressing? Because it seems a very little headway could be made from this summit between India and China at least.
Actually, you have just heard what Chinese interlocutor was saying. The Chinese take is that we have to do our business all over the world, and we are doing business wherever it is possible. And you remember that Xi Jinping has gone to Bangladesh, and almost $24 billion deal has been signed between the two countries. So China is all doing business. And when I was talking to the interlocutor in the last, he said that if business can be increased between the two countries, maybe a spillover effect will be there on other issues like energy and like Masood Azhar too. So they just signal that India has to increase business with China. And Chinese have told that we are also interested in civil nuclear reactors. We have interest in infrastructure sector. We have interest in railway sector. So they are telling that no much headway has been achieved between India and China, where there was lots of assurance when Prime Minister Narendra Modi hosted Xi Jinping in Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, and then in Delhi. So I think Chinese are a bit disappointed on the business side, and I think that this is one of the reasons why China is not taking a firm stand on the question of Masood Azhar and also on the question of NSG. So what is the take? What is the take? Take is now that you have to increase your communication channels with China on many other fronts. And you have to make your business people go there. You have to make your diplomats, and you have to make political contacts, not only at the Prime Minister's level, but at various levels, so that our position can be articulated with the Chinese, that why proscribing Masood Azhar is important for both India and China. Because Chinese see it from different perspective. They are telling that we see it as if India and Pakistan are always at war. So we fail to understand that why it is terrorism when there is war between India and Pakistan. So we need to articulate more when we are talking to Chinese in person. We are speaking on the multilateral fronts, we are making a statement, but the Chinese think that there should be more talk bilaterally, and that is the bottom line, that I think that we should increase communication with the Chinese leadership and Chinese officialdom bureaucracy. And they are also telling that there are hurdles in Indian bureaucracy that we are unable to do much business with India.
All right, so both the economic and strategic points of view will be coming up when Prime Minister Modi meets Chinese President Xi Jinping. Thanks very much, Akhilesh Suman, for that update. Now, of course, the Chinese president and the Russian president are in India for the BRICS summit, and all visiting dignitaries, in fact, were received by Minister of State for External Affairs V.K. Singh at the IS Hansa base near Dabolim Airport. They were accorded a grand reception with artists performing various Indian dances depicting the country's rich culture. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the host of the summit, began his day with a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Prime Minister's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping is underway, while he is also scheduled to meet South African President Jacob Zuma. Terrorism is expected to be the main issue to be raised by India with both leaders. With China, Prime Minister Modi is also expected to raise issues such as India's NSG membership bid and China blocking UN ban on JEM chief and Pathankot attack mastermind Masood Azhar. All BRICS leaders will then meet for an informal dinner at around 7:30 p.m, following which they will also have a group photo with the captains of the BRICS under-17 football teams. The formal summit begins Sunday morning. Moving on now, at least 19 people were killed and 60 injured in a stampede at Rajghat bridge near Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh today. The mishap took place when a large number of people gathered for a religious event. Authorities said the death toll could rise.
Tragedy struck a religious gathering in Varanasi on Saturday when a stampede killed over a dozen people and left nearly 100 others injured. The incident took place near the Rajghat bridge between Varanasi and Chandauli, after thousands of people paid tribute to spiritual leader Jai Gurudev on the banks of Ganga. The injured were admitted to a nearby hospital where relief and rescue operations are in full swing.
आए थे सत्संग में, वहाँ से बहुत जोर एकदम भीड़ में सब लोगों ने उधर से धक्का मारा, मतलब उसको पीछे करके बैक करके बहुत बिगड़ भीड़ में उसमें दबकर मेरी माता और मैं भी बहुत, जब मेरे भी गोड़े वोड़े सब दर्द हो रहा है।
बाबा जय गुरुदेव का समागम होना था वहाँ पर चंदौली और बनारस वहाँ क्षेत्र से जो जुलूस निकल रहा था, उस जुलूस में जब रामघाट लोहे के पुल के पास से वो गुजर रहा था तो वहाँ पर वहाँ के कोई पुरुष गिर गया जिससे भगदड़ मची।
Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Akhilesh Yadav announced 2 lakh rupees each for the relatives of those killed in the tragedy and 50,000 rupees each for the critically injured. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also expressed condolences to the bereaved families. The police ordered an inquiry to find out the cause of the stampede.
माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी द्वारा इसमें जो मृतक उनके परिजनों को 2 लाख रुपए का मुआवजा की घोषणा की गई है तथा जो घायल हैं उनको फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट गवर्नमेंट के एक्सपेंस पर उनका इलाज कराया जा रहा है। ये जांच का विषय है, इसमें जांच कराई जाएगी और कि क्राउड कंट्रोल के क्या इंतजामात थे, वहाँ पे किसकी कहाँ पे चूक हुई।
A government spokesman said the situation in Chandauli is being monitored and all necessary measures are being taken. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time for us to take a short break. Lots more on the other side. Do stay tuned.
Nanotechnology, I think, is something that is going to affect all of us for a simple reason that it's getting into all other technologies. So we started nanotoxicology, looking at the adverse effects of nanomaterials way back in 2005. We were the first to do that in this country. And since then, we've been looking at various commercially important materials. We also came out with a policy document on the safe handling of these nanomaterials in the laboratory.
Watch Eureka with Professor Alok Dhawan only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Some international news now, and 197 nations have hammered out a legally binding deal to cut back on greenhouse gases used in refrigerators and air conditioners. The major deal was reached in Rwanda. The deal includes the world's 2 biggest economies, the United States and China. It divides other countries into 3 groups with different deadlines to reduce the use of factory-made hydrofluorocarbons or HFC gases. These gases are believed to be 10,000 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. As per the deal, developed nations, including much of Europe and the US, commit to reducing their use of gases incrementally, starting with the 10% cut by 2019 and reaching 85% by 2036. Two groups of developing countries will freeze their use of the gases by either 2024 or 2028 and then gradually reduce their use. India, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan and Gulf countries will meet the 2028 deadline. In the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement also came into force last week, but unlike that, the deal signed in Rwanda is legally binding.
This is a very good amendment, very balanced amendment, and all the countries, they have put forth their concern, and this amendment has taken care of concerns of all the countries and their priorities. So it is a very balanced one, and it is good for climate, good for nature. We are very comfortable with that, and I think it is good for our economy and good for climate.
And if you look at it, we are going to achieve somewhere in the order of 80 to 90% of the emission reductions from these chemicals. It is staggering what this will achieve. We're talking about an amount that's comparable to thousands of coal-fired power plant emissions. It's amazing.
The Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has rejected fresh claims of sexual assault, saying they are part of a plot to damage his campaign. Two new claims emerged on Friday, but Trump called them false and driven by fame, money or politics. The recent accusations have pushed back Trump campaigns, with the latest poll suggesting Trump is losing ground in some of the key battleground states.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump continues to reject accusations of sexual assault made against him, even as fresh claims emerged on Friday. Addressing supporters in North Carolina, Trump said the accusations were sick and false and driven by fame, money or politics. Trump also called himself the victim of a smear campaign.
As you have seen, I am a victim of one of the great political smear campaigns in the history of our country. They are coming after me to try and destroy what is considered by even them the greatest movement in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it.
The latest denial comes after several women reported that the Republican presidential candidate groped or kissed them without their consent. Two new accusations came from an ex-apprentice contestant who cited a 2007 incident and a woman who described a case from the early 1990s.
Today, another woman has courageously come forward to accuse Donald Trump of engaging in an inappropriate sexual conduct with her. Summer Zervos was a candidate on The Apprentice on season 5. When she first met Donald Trump, she had great admiration for him. Unfortunately, because of what she alleges that Mr. Trump did to her behind closed doors, she is now deeply disappointed in him and feels hurt, betrayed, and embarrassed by the way that he treated her.
But despite being condemned and criticized the world over for his comments and behavior, Trump supporters remain loyal to him.
It's like he said, it's locker room talk. Locker room talk happens among men, guys, you know, in the past or in the future, as well as current. But yeah, it's just, yeah, they're just desperately trying to find something to bring up on him.
Meanwhile, Trump's rival and Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton resonated President Obama's remark, calling Trump unqualified and unfit to be the president.
I've known people who've been nominated by the Republican Party. I've had my differences with them on policies and principles, but I never questioned their fitness to serve. Donald Trump is different. He is unqualified and unfit to be the president and commander-in-chief.
With less than 4 weeks remaining for the presidential elections, Clinton leads Trump in opinion polls by 7 percentage points. The latest polls show that 44% of likely voters support Clinton, while only 37% back Trump. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news now in Global Buzz. The US has announced new measures to further ease trade, travel and financial restrictions in Cuba as President Barack Obama seeks to make his opening to the communist-ruled island irreversible before he leaves office in January. The changes will allow export to Cuba of some of the U.S. consumer goods sold online and let U.S. firms improve Cuban infrastructure for humanitarian purposes. Egypt's military launched airstrikes against jihadi targets in North Sinai in retaliation for the killing of 12 army personnel at a checkpoint on Friday. The army retaliation killed 15 terrorists. All areas harboring the terrorists along with their weapons and ammunition depots were destroyed in the airstrike that lasted for 3 hours. A Sinai-based militant group loyal to the Islamic State had claimed responsibility for Friday's attack. Pakistan Army Chief General Raheel Sharif has expressed concern over what he says is a false and fabricated story of an important security meeting held at the Prime Minister's house. The story, published in the Dawn newspaper, suggested a confrontation between the country's civil and military leaderships. The report had created a furor in Pakistan, with the reporter who filed the story, Cyril Almeida, barred from leaving Pakistan. Almeida was taken off the exit control list after widespread outcry. Around 55 people were killed in Iraq in various attacks on Saturday, targeting a Shiite Muslim gathering, a police checkpoint, and the family of a Sunni paramilitary leader. The escalation in violence comes as Iraqi forces get ready to launch an offensive to take back Mosul, the last Iraqi city still under control of the Islamic State. The Islamic State has intensified bomb attacks in government-held areas this year as it loses territory. Israel has suspended cooperation with UNESCO a day after UN cultural body passed a resolution that sharply criticized Israeli policies around the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. The resolution condemned Israel for restricting Muslims' access to the site and for aggression by police and soldiers. It also recognized Israel as the occupying power. Palestine welcomed the resolution, saying it was an important message to Israel that it must end its occupation and recognize the Palestinian state and Jerusalem as its capital. Time now for all the action from the world of sports and Sports Beat. Indian shuttler Ajay Jairam reached the semi-finals of the Dutch Open. The defending champion defeated Brazil's Coelho de Oliveira 21-15, 21-18 in the quarters. He will next face Denmark's Anders Antonsen for a place in the final. Leander Paes and his German partner Andre Begemann lost to Dennis Istomin and Mikhail Elgin in the men's doubles final at the Tashkent Challenger. The third seed Indo-German pair went down in straight sets 4-6, 2-6. Paes is yet to win a title in the ATP World Tour this season. This was his third runners-up finish after Winston-Salem and St. Petersburg. World number one Novak Djokovic suffered a shock 6-4, 6-4 loss to Spaniard Roberto Bautista Agut in Shanghai Masters in the semi-finals. The 12 times Grand Slam champion made 29 unforced error against the 15 seed and converted just 2 of the 9 break points. Opener Azhar Ali became the fourth cricketer from Pakistan to score a triple test 100, making an unbeaten 302 runs in the second test against the West Indies in Dubai on Friday. The triple 100 also makes Ali the first batsman to score a 300 in a day-night test. Ali completed 4,000 test runs in the process, becoming the 10th Pakistani to do so. That's all from us. Goodbye.